All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I'm Is There No One Else, and I'm bringing you the 6.2.3 patch notes that just came out today. I wanted to go through the changes to the set items and different classes and stuff, and kind of talk about the changes and, you know, what I think is good and bad, and, you know, what I think still needs to be addressed. So, with that being said, let's dive into it. Mid-year Mayhem stuff for the PTS. So we got another one coming, which is pretty cool. Housing, art and animation, dungeons and group content, housing, quests and zones, UI, combat and abilities. Fix an issue where tether abilities and sets such as Shocking Siphon or Stone Husk were not properly treated as area of effect damage for bonuses such as Ancient Knowledge or Major Evasion. Okay. Fix an issue where pets would behave erratically if Prevent Attacking Innocents was set. Their primal urge is to kill all who dare to stand in front of their master has been mostly quelled. Okay. Fixed an issue where using some abilities such as Shield Wall could desync your stamina while blocking. Thank you. Fix an issue where projectile impacts could appear delayed on your client when weaving them with heavy attacks, where projectile impacts could appear delayed on your client. Yes, yes, absolutely. This happens quite a bit on staff builds. Very weird, very clunky. Buffs and debuffs, minor brittle. Fix an issue where this debuff could be applied when not actively wielding a frost staff in some cases. Sorry, the only reason I'm laughing is I just think the major and minor brittle buff it's just a funny name to me. I don't know why. I can't really, well, I do know why, but I can't really explain why it makes me laugh, but it just, you have all these cool names and you just have brittle, you know, like I don't know. I'm probably the only one that finds it amusing, so I'll just keep it to myself. Dragonite, Ardent Flame, Dragonite Standard. Fix an issue where this ultimate and its morphs would stop dealing damage if the caster began using a cast or channel time ability. Okay. Nightblade, Siphoning, Catalyst. If you guys have watched my latest video, you know how I feel about Catalyst. This passive can once again be used outside of combat. Developers comment, after monitoring the feedback from the recent adjustments to item sets in this passive, we agreed that class passives are not a fair comparison to item sets as passives are built in and cannot be removed, while item sets are designed with the thought that you will always wear them if you are attempting to utilize their bonus. Moving forward, we will ensure that item sets that generate ultimate only do so while in combat, as well as buff effects with duration such as major and minor heroism. Classes that can currently generate ultimate outside of combat will remain as such, since they can help reinforce the playstyle and roles that they try to bring to life. Okay, this makes sense. They talked about it in the last PTS that, you know, sets such as like Arcasis and everything, it'll be just like Clever Alchemist. You can't proc it when you're out of combat. Currently, when I run around with Arcasis, I can pop potions every 33 seconds in between keeps, and I'm just generating on my Nightblade 60 something ultimate. I think it's 63 ultimate. So every 33 seconds, I'm gaining 63 ultimate. By the time I get in most fights, I'm at 500 ult. The first person that I'm hitting gets hit very, very hard. So it does make sense. You know, it does make sense that it's more of a combat thing. It doesn't really change the build. Build's still awesome. It's going to be really fun. You know, you could still build, you know, this ultimate at resources. You know, you kill a bunch of ads and you don't use your ultimate and you pop potions on your back bar. It's the same thing, you know, so it doesn't really change a whole lot. It's just, you know, combat. So I think this makes sense. I think Nightblade's having it all the time. I mean, it is one of their passives. So it just, yeah, makes sense to me. Weapon, Destruction Staff, Wall of Elements, Wall of Frost, and its morphs will now cost 4,050 magic at base rather than 3,780. Okay. Remove the 25% damage penalty of these abilities inherited for their new affixes they were given. With these adjustments, we hope that damage dealers will feel less penalized than before when using Wall of Frost and its morphs, especially when utilizing the new Magic Restore function of Destruction Expert, which will naturally occur when properly using Wall of Frost and its morphs. Okay. Itemization and item sets. Ethereal Ascension. Reduce the penalty to your block, sprint, dodge, and break free cost to 20% down from 25%. If I remember correctly, Ethereal Ascension is the one that gives you a ton of resistances at the cost of 25% increased cost, all these things, which basically made it useless. This set is meant to allow you to easily reach armor cap and being able to obtain other stats in their place, but at the cost of your core combat skills being less reliable. The penalty is relatively high, as at this point there are many easy ways to reduce the cost of these core combat skills through things such as champion points, passives, and armor traits, and we will continue to monitor the impact of the penalty on a build that keeps those in mind. So I need to test this. I need to get a video out talking about the set, and it's a good thing I didn't get it out earlier, because you know, it's not nothing, but 20% is still too high in my opinion. I mean, block, sprint, dodge, and break free, you know, at the cost of increased resistances. It's just, I don't know. I mean, they're just basically asking you to be a totem. You know, stand there and you're super tanky, but don't block. Don't sprint, don't dodge an ability, don't break free either, because that's going to cost you resources. You just be there. I don't know. I don't know. I still don't think this is, I think there's better ways to go about min-maxing and getting resistances without having to have a 20% cost increase. I will have to check to make sure, of course, but just off the top of my head, this still doesn't look like a very usable set. You know, I mean, I was thinking about this and I was like, well, maybe this is one of those sets where they're trying to go for, you know, beginner tanks, you know, PvE, 4-man dungeon tanks, and they give them extra resistances so they're not taking as much damage. Because the number one goal for a tank in a PvE situation is to survive. That's your number one goal. If you can't stay alive, you're of no help to anybody else. You know, if you can't tank ads and keep them under control and stay alive, nothing else matters. You know, once you can stay alive, then buffing your group through other sets and, you know, giving them more health or more damage or whatever, that becomes valuable. So I thought when I first saw it, I was like, okay, well, they're giving him increased resistances, so maybe that's what this is for. But then you take away their increased block, then you give them increased block costs, and it's like, well, maybe that's not what it's for. So I don't know. I can't really picture a scenario where this is a good set. And like I said, you know, I haven't tested it yet. This is just my initial thought. Yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it, because yeah, I'm just drawing a blank for where I would use this. Red Eagle's Fury. This set now increases the cost of your weapon abilities by 5% rather than increasing the cost of your non-weapon abilities, which is a very good change. Your non-weapon abilities typically cost more than your weapon abilities, and so 5% increase on something that's more is going to be more of a detriment to you in general, which was making Red Eagle's Fury obsolete. This change is made to keep up with the theme of a martial focused build that grants a larger bonus to its specialization, but at a cost similar to New Moon Acolyte. This set, if I remember correctly, is like weapon damage, weapon and spell damage, weapon and spell crit, weapon and spell damage, and then it's like 469 weapon and spell damage to your weapon abilities. And so, I don't know. I mean, the 5% cost increase, it went in the right direction, but on paper, it just looks like a weaker New Moon, you know? So, and I know some people are going to say, well, you can stack both of them, you know, and that is true. You can stack both of them. And, you know, I don't know. I just don't see where this is nice, because it's 5%. It's not boosting your healing. It just boosts, I mean, it'll boost your rally healing because it's your weapon ability. But it's not, it shouldn't be buffing your vigor. It just doesn't, it doesn't seem to like come to the forefront. It doesn't seem competitive to other sets that are out there. Like I said, I will have to test it and all that, but I mean, it just, on paper, this just doesn't look like a very good set compared to other sets that are out there. Dungeon Arena sets, Banny's Torment, fixed an issue where the major vitality from the set was not lost when the beam broke. Okay, Sergeant's Mail. This set's bonus damage for heavy attacks will once again no longer apply to dual wields offhand strike. Okay, so we've had jokes in my Discord about sergeants. Nothing but jokes. You guys know my stance on proc sets at this point. If you guys have watched my channel for, you know, the last couple of years, I just believe how proc sets currently function. The ability to stack them creates too much free damage. You know, and it doesn't matter what proc sets they are. It doesn't matter if it's Sergeants. It doesn't matter if it's Sheer Venom or Venomous Smite or Colurians or whatever. There's so many good proc sets that can stack with other good proc sets, and there's not really a negligible loss. You know, it just makes sense to run proc sets, and you get so much free bonus damage from doing it. Sergeant's Mail is one of them that, you know, is doing that with dual wield. So it does make sense for it to get adjusted. While we had recently adjusted this to work, it has proven too burst enabling in PvP, especially when paired with other heavy attack sets. Now this, I'm not going to argue with this developer comment, okay? I want to get that clear. You know, this is the problem with proc sets, is when you stack them with other proc sets of the same conditionality, they're very, very powerful. You know, that's the problem that you have with proc sets. And so The point that has been made for the last 3 years about proc sets, it's not about each individual one's strength. It's about the stacking of them. So when we had our last proc meta and it was Widowmaker and it was Viper and it was Tremor Scale, it was the fact, they were all hitting really hard. That was a problem. Like one person running one of them, it was just more damage. So I don't want to take that away. There was that part too, but they all stacked and coincided with each other. And that's the biggest issue. And they're even addressing this here with Sergeant. Like, yeah, you stack this with other heavy attack sets. It's very problematic. It does a ton of damage. Well, what's the difference between that and Sheer Venom? Sheer Venom and Venomous Smite. I can light attack Poison Inject. And I proc my Poison Inject. If I do it from stealth on a Nightblade, I proc both of them. So I get the Poison Inject damage, I get the Sheer Venom damage, and I get the Venomous Smite damage. All three of those things off of one casted skill with a ton of damage. It's a lot of pressure. If any of you guys play BGs, this is what you encounter in Battlegrounds when you fight a stamina-based class. You encounter Unleashed Terror with VMA 2H, where they're gap closing on you, so to proc Unleashed, and then the gap closer Crit Rush is also procking the VMA two-hander, and then they can also on top of that run Venomous Smite, which procs that. Like, one ability is procking 3 different proc sets in that situation. The one that I brought up is procking 2 different proc sets. So yes, if you're looking at Sergeants and how powerful it is when you're pairing it with other heavy attack sets, you have to look at the other proc sets when paired with other proc sets functioning on similar conditionality. So good change, but go further. And the thing is any one of these sets by themselves wouldn't be that big of a deal. Venomous Smite, I think, needs to be toned back a little bit. Sheer Venom, but like Unchained, or not Unchained, Unleashed. Sorry, Unleashed. The Gap Closer Dot. I don't think that one's that bad. I don't think that dot really hits super hard, but it's a stacking, of Stampede with the VMA two-hander, with, Unleashed, with, other sets like Venomous Smite that all proc and coincide together that make it really problematic. So if we had a universal global cooldown on proc sets to where when you proc one, you have to wait X amount of seconds before any of the other procs would go off, it would solve all of these problems. It would solve the problems where people want to run proc sets. You can absolutely run proc sets. You just can't run 3 of them. You can't stack proc sets. You can only run 1. So you choose which proc that you want to use the most, and then you get the benefit of it. Then we don't have to worry about adjusting each of these individual things, because all these individual things come into account when you're discussing different builds. Like the VMA 2H wasn't good. It's still not a very good piece, but the VMA 2H stacked with another set that functions on the same thing, all of a sudden becomes very powerful and problematic, which is similar to what they're talking about here with their heavy attack sets. This is the biggest issue right now when you're talking about damage in PvP, is the stacking of all these different things. And so, like I just said, just go a little further. Don't worry about, if you give that universal cooldown, you can then have, like what they just did, you can then have your skill audit on each individual set to make them more in line for PvE. And then you don't have to worry about how broken they are as much in PvP, because then it's like, okay, well, I can only run 1 proc damage set. I can only run 1 proc damage set. I'm going to choose Sheer Venom, or I'm going to choose, whatever, because they're not going to stack on top of each other anymore. I'll have some more content coming out about proc sets this week. But yeah, I'm not going to keep beating the same horse, but this is a good change. This individual change is good. Their justification is a good justification, but they're looking at one tree in the forest where there are multiple different trees that all have this same situation, and they're not looking at those right now, which doesn't make any sense. Sheer Venom. Just talking about it. Reduce the damage a set deals to 65.76 over 6 seconds, down from 87.66 over 6. It's fine, but it's a good change, but it's still the stacking that's problematic. Like my Poison Inject is still essentially getting doubled with Sheer Venom, and it's proccing Poisonous Smite. Like that's the problem. Yes, you're reducing this by what? 30% ish, It's a good change. but this has a scaling execute. Like, people look at sheer Venom and they're like, oh, it's only 9,000 damage over 6 seconds, but it does up to 100% more damage. So it actually is, before this change, it's one of the strongest proc sets in the game. And still, like, this just brings it in line with some of the other stuff. It's still a powerful proc set that coincides well with other proc sets, which is going to make it, still strong. Fixed an issue where this set had a higher chance of applying the poison status effect than intended. Oh. I wonder how much higher it was. Because I fought 3 guys running that build that I just mentioned. It was Sheer Venom, Venomous Smite, and whatever. And I just felt like my health bar was disappearing. All 3 of them were running it. So it made sense that my health bar was disappearing, but I just felt like I couldn't recover. So far as scales, fixed an issue where the set was ignoring its own cooldown in some cases. Fixed an issue where the set would stop working if you entered a new zone. I've heard Savara's is kind of messed up. I haven't gone out there to test it. I've been too busy with Arcasis, for those of you guys that don't know. Having way too much fun with that set personally. But I've seen some talk about how Savara's is not functioning properly right now. Mythic items, Pearls of El Nofi. The set can no longer generate ultimate outside of combat. Okay, just going in line with what they talked about above. Ring of the Pale Order. This set now heals for 18% of your damage done, up from 15%. Decrease the healing cap to 2750, down from 3750. With these adjustments, the set should perform slightly better for sustained pressure builds in PvP in general, while seeing reductions in power from heavy hitting burst attacks in PvE. So this has been discussed a lot. Pale Order has been discussed a lot. I've talked about it. I know Alcast has talked about it. I think Hack the Minotaur came out with a video talking about this set today. He's talked about it in other videos. This set is the most discussed set currently in this PTS. And it makes sense because its impact, and we're seeing this now. We're seeing what the impact is in PvE and PvP. And I talked about it in the last PTS, the last patch notes last week. They put the cap on here. And the reason they put the cap on is because, if you can get enough self-healing as a damage dealer, you don't need a healer. And so you're eliminating core mechanics that, like, you're able to eliminate potentially some core mechanics for score runs. And so most trials, the idea is 2 tanks, 2 healers, and the rest are DPS, right? That's typically like the generic, that's how most people set up their trials situation. Well, if Pale Order is giving you so much healing to where you don't need a healer, that means you can then just stack 2 more DPS. And you're going to burn stuff faster. You're going to potentially ignore mechanics. You're going to get a higher score, and everything's going to get offset. The entire balance of PvE gets offset because of how powerful Pale Order is. It's the same thing with like the score runs back, a year ago when dots were super high in Scalebreaker. Like, everybody was able to complete all the content because it was super easy to just rotate dots. Everybody was at 100k plus DPS. This is just different. It's everybody's just going to be able to self-heal like crazy. So they're making these adjustments with the PvE aspect in mind to not make it super overpowered. They still want, healers to have their role. As far as this pertains to PvP, this really isn't an impact at all. It's really hard to hit this healing cap. Like, it's really hard to hit the healing cap in PvP. It's still going to be a powerful set for them. Like I said, it's better healing for sustained pressure builds, like dot-based builds. It's going to be more powerful. Your hardest hitting abilities, you're not going to get it. Like I said, it's going to be really hard to hit this cap. So if you're PvPing and you saw this set and you're like, oh, this looks awesome, I really want to get this for PvP, this shouldn't change your opinion. In my opinion, this shouldn't change your opinion. This is still a set worth going out to get for PvP. This is just a bigger adjustment on the PvE side. So that's all I want to talk about with that. Ability altering weapons, Executioner's Blade. This item set now increases the damage done with Hidden Blade up to 250% on targets under 100% health, 2.5% damage per 1% missing health, rather than 200% against targets under 25% health. Interesting. We'll have to, like I said, I haven't done this test yet. We're going to have to go look at that set. This is the new Vatishran's dual wield, if I remember correctly. Set now also restores up to 50% of the cost of Hidden Blade when used on targets under 50% health. This portion of the attack will also proc when using the free cost version of Flying Blade. Wait, what? Okay, I read through these patch notes before. This is interesting. Okay, so the set now also restores up to 50% of the cost of Hidden Blade when used on targets under 50% health. This portion of the attack will also proc when using the free cost version of Flying Blade. So as it pertains, and I'm sorry guys, I'm going to venture in, I'm going to dip my toe into the PvE waters here. This seems like a very interesting possibility for PvE DPS, because if you're killing a boss, Executioner's Blade, if I remember correctly, you have to attack them from behind. And so when you attack them from behind, you're going to get the scaling damage. When I was looking at it before, I was like, okay, well, you know, if you get this full scaled modifier, it's essentially the same as, you know, a spammable or even more. The fact that the free cost version can return 50% of the cost of this ability could make it very interesting for rotations. You know, just because it's another way to sustain, which, you know, if you're able to self-sustain a lot more easily, you know, you're able to stack more damage. So that's super interesting. I mean, it's still going to be like, we're going to have to fully test this set. Like this is super, super interesting. I'm going to take my toe out of the PvE waters and we're going to go back into what I know. But that's a very interesting change. Very, very interesting. So we'll have to look at that. Frenzied Momentum. This set can no longer generate stacks while outside of combat to help reduce the burst damage you can start with in a fight. Note that stacks from previous encounters will still carry over, however, so you do not lose a previous effort. Okay, so you can't put it on Gank Specs anymore, essentially. Point Blank Snipe. This set now scales its damage between 5% and 33% based on your distances, rather than granting 33% while 7 meters are closer to your target. The 33% is reached when 3 meters are closer to your target, and rapidly scales down to 5% when 18.5 meters or more from your target. With this adjustment, we expect to see more forgiving gameplay when you try to engage with the long shots passive, which operates inversely with the set and is intended due to the huge payoff you get in close range. That's interesting. It's super interesting. Yeah, I'll have a video talking about Point Blank Snipe too. Wrath of Elements increase the damage done with the set to 23,710 over 10 seconds, up from 21,400 over 10. Each time the tether damages an enemy, and increases the damage by 1% up to 20 times. You can get up to 20% more damage. Interesting. With these values, we hope to see more payoff for using the set and cleave an area of effect encounters, while also rewarding staying in range of your opponent. All right. Into your Mayhem, Furnishing, UI. That is it. So overall, pretty interesting changes. Like I said, like I think these changes are good. Reducing the damage that sheer Venom provides is a solid change. I still think they need to go after Venomous Smite. Venomous Smite is still hitting very powerful, or it's still hitting very hard, but it's not. The problem is you know, we have this discussion every time they come out with a proc set. You know, every time they come out with a proc set and they try to balance that proc set, you know, there's only so many conditions and there's only so many abilities that exist in this game. And with the amount of sets that are out there, when you come out with a proc set, it's more than likely going to work with another proc set. And so if you want to continually not have to deal with, like, if I was a developer, you know, let's just say I'm a developer and I wanted to stop people complaining about, you know, different builds and stuff and all these stacking things, and I wanted to continually come out with new and interesting procs that had cool animations, that had different powerful effects that kept people hooked into the game, I would put a global cooldown on procs. So that then all you have to do is you just have to balance the set. You know, you don't have to worry about how the set's going to impact the other 200 to 300 sets that exist in the game. You're just like, hey, you know, we're going to come out with a dot-based set that does poison damage, but you can't stack it with sheer Venom. Sorry, you know? And it's like, okay, cool. But yeah, I already talked about that. We don't have to talk about it anymore. Let me know what you guys think of these patch notes. I actually think they're pretty good overall. Like, I think these are good changes. Like I said, just go a little bit farther there. Overall, like, it looks like a good patch. Let's see what the performance looks like. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.